Hey, what's up, everybody? So, sorry we're a little late coming on tonight, but hey, man, I just got back. I just got home from work. But you know what else? Looks like we got some information on this supposed duel of the century. That's right, the Obi Wan Vader duel in the upcoming Obi Wan series has leaked. That's right, somebody came up with some details. And so, of course, we couldn't let that go. So, we're going to talk about it right now.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this wonderful show that we've got going on tonight. So it looks like now they finally leaked the Obi Wan Vader duel, which, of course, is a big deal because that was one of the things that a lot of people, of course, have been talking about, but then just seemed to drop out of nowhere, right? I mean, Kathleen Kennedy talked about it during the, what was that? It wasn't Celebration. It was,
No, it was when they actually revealed all those different.
Yeah, but what show was that, though? There was like some convention or something.
Yeah, it was
it Investors Day?
Yeah, it's like a Disney's Investors Day or something like that.
Something like that. But I remember, yeah, they actually came up with all this stuff about all these different shows that are coming out. And yeah, that was one of the big things that actually came out, which you just casually mentioned. Oh, yeah, there's going to be this Darth Vader Obi-Wan thing, and it's going to be the duel of the century and all this stuff. And we had actually talked a lot about, is it a good idea? Should Obi-Wan and Vader face off again? There were some arguments that you could make from the dialogue in episode 4 that maybe you could do it. But then again, I think you and I finally went back and forth where we said, you know what? Not if you actually take everything that they said at face value. So I'm not really sure exactly how they're going to pull this off. But then apparently, probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, maybe a week ago, somebody leaked a bunch of details about this. So what are they?
Yeah, man. This is really interesting for me. As we know, we've been talking about the whole Obi-Wan series. We're starting to get more information on this particular series, and it's been really cool. We've got Sun Kang, who's actually rumored to play one of the Inquisitors.
Yes.
So we've got some action coming, definitely. So there'll be lightsabers aplenty. So
Apparently, it's going to be more in this show than like half of the other shows that they've had.
Right. So, which is fine with me, but I love a good duel.
Absolutely.
But, this is really interesting to me because, like you said, we have debated this over and over again about, should Vader and Obi-Wan have, basically like a third fight, like a trilogy fight. The first one, of course, was in Revenge of the Sith. Now, apparently, this is supposed to be another little skirmish, and then, of course, we get the one that we all know and love from A New Hope. So, with this whole plot detail, essentially, the plot is one of the Jedi. There's maybe a Jedi that was in captivity that was, from the Jedi Purge, and it was held. This particular Jedi was held in captivity. One of the missions that Obi-Wan took was to go free this particular Jedi. So, I don't know if it's supposed to go help Luke or just to free him or whatever. But in the midst of that, of course, this is kind of interfering with Vader's thing. So Vader just finds out that Obi-Wan's on his way, or somehow gets word that Obi-Wan freed this particular person. So, of course, Vader's just like, all right, that's it. I'll deal with my old master myself. And so he marches off, which apparently is to be on Jeddah. Apparently, Vader was on Mustafar on his throne, and Mustafar hears about this, and then he leaves Mustafar, ends up on Jeddah somehow, and this is where this battle kind of takes place, and not a whole lot has been given to it. We don't know how it ends. Obviously, they both survive because obviously we see them in A New Hope, but I think that the duel kind of starts off with Obi-Wan force pushing Vader before he even gets a chance to really kind of do anything. Force pushes him 50 feet into this rock mountain formation or what have you, and kind of like rattles Vader a little bit. And, that's kind of how everything kind of kicks off. But apparently Obi-Wan is definitely, more powerful, more stronger. Of course, at this time we saw how he was able to defeat Maul so easily. So, this is a different kind of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree that this is a different kind of Obi-Wan. And I think that that's something that, obviously has been from the very beginning. They have been talking about this show, and they've been talking about it in the context of the original trilogy, a little bit in the prequels, because, of course, that's where we last see Obi-Wan. But we're getting a more seasoned Obi-Wan. We're getting an Obi-Wan that is by far more powerful. I think they even said more powerful than what we've ever seen. I mean, you can obviously chime in on that one too, but I don't know where it's actually going to go, because I mean, on one hand, it makes sense. This is supposed to be Obi-Wan at his absolute zenith. Like, this is going to be the most powerful we ever see him, because his powers do diminish by episode 4. And of course, he was on his way to getting more powerful, but about this 10-year mark after Revenge of the Sith, which would put it about 9 years before episode 4, this is supposed to be like his zenith of power. This is, Obi-Wan at his best.
Yeah, I mean, I think this would be great because, the cool thing about this, and you can understand the sense of urgency on both sides of the coin here. Let me just kind of paint this picture. Vader is Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan knows that. Obi-Wan knows how powerful Anakin was as a Jedi. He also knows that, the dark side is a faster way to power. So given that, Anakin's younger, but he's still younger than him, but he's still older in his power. So of course, Anakin is still growing, or Vader is still growing. However, Obi-Wan chooses to look at him. He's still growing in power. And he's growing faster in power. Obi-Wan on the opposite side, of course, Vader knows this. He knew Obi-Wan to be very wise and to be very powerful himself. I mean, he was once a member of the Jedi Council. And so, once again, same thing. As Obi-Wan's ages, he gets more powerful. So, this is kind of like, and we've often talked about that, how that one fan kind of redid the whole fight scene from episode 4.
Yeah.
How it kind of see, that's what I'm thinking we're going to get.
That's what we need. Well, that's what we should get. And you know what? That is a way, and I've said this a lot. Now, I've said this more really when you're talking about the sequel trilogy, about how they're going to softly reboot it, because a lot of people have said, oh, are they going to go and reboot the sequel trilogy? Are they going to go remake it? And I said, no, what they'll probably do is they'll probably softly reboot it by just telling stories that will just sort of push the sequel trilogy aside, and these new stories or whatever would take its place. And that's kind of what they're doing here. So we don't get this epic battle in episode 4. But we do, like you said, maybe we get it in the Obi-Wan series, and that will also serve to, in a way, I think they're trying to retcon a little bit, because they're trying to explain why is Obi-Wan so slow and all this other stuff. Why was that fight? And of course, the in-universe explanation is because they really weren't dueling as much as they were. It was almost like they were hashing things out, like almost aggressive negotiations, if you will. Because they were really more talking, and it was really more of an emotional dialogue. Whereas earlier, it was more of an all-out duel.
Well, going to that whole emotional dialogue, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that now you have this whole, we know the lines from the movie because we probably, quote them like a million times.
Sure.
But, when I left you, I was only but a learner. Now I am the master. And of course, I'm only a master of evil, Darth. So, of course, we've always looked at that from Revenge of the Sith perspective. Like, okay, he was still newly made a Jedi Knight, so he was still kind of learning. That, and then Obi-Wan was considered a master. But now, if this is the Obi-Wan that we are hoping for, and this is the Vader that we're hoping for. And this kind of once again brings us to the point of we don't really know at what point does Vader become a master. You see what I'm saying? Like because Palpatine is still around. So we know because of the rule of two. Well, I'm just saying because the other rule of two. I'm just saying like the rule of two says that.
Well,
like,
I mean,
okay,
and
you
I
can't
don't
be
think
a master until you kill your master.
Right, but I don't think that Vader is actually saying that though. Well, I don't think that that's what Vader's saying.
Okay.
I mean, when he's talking about when I left you, I was a learner, but now I'm the master. I just think that he means he's more powerful than Obi Wan. I don't necessarily think he really means a Sith master per se. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like when he says only a master of evil, what I'm saying is there comes a point like, okay, we knew that as powerful as cool as Maul was, and compared to like Ahsoka, yeah, he's super powerful compared to Ahsoka. You see what I'm saying? But you can match Vader with Maul. Vader or Maul take Maul out in like 2 seconds.
Well,
yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So it's like, at what point does Vader, because remember, Vader is still getting used to being in the suit.
Well, and that's what I was going to say.
And that's what I'm getting at. Like, so at what point does he become the master Vader like that? We know where he's comfortable now. Like, he's really like, okay,
well,
like
I think it's around this time period, actually.
And that's my point. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so when he said, I left you, I was only but a learner. Now I am the master. It's like, okay, look, you might have bested me last time, but I've grown since then. Because there's still some time between this whole duel, I guess, between him and Obi-Wan and then the New Hope duel.
Oh, sure. 9 years.
So that's what I'm saying. So there is still like that time period where, Vader still, once again, because he's a faster descent to the, like he's reaching his power faster because he's on the dark side. That's what I mean. Like maybe by that time we get to A New Hope, he's really truly.
Yes. You do have kind of a thing to where basically you had the weakness where Vader was getting used to the suit and all that, but because he can get through his power faster using not only just the techniques, but you also have to remember that at one point you had Palpatine also constantly, trying to engineer his suit to where he'll feel pain constantly. And of course, he's always egging him on, and he's always doing things that are going to enhance his power because obviously he needs that power in order to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. So I think that that's one of the things that you have to look at. Now, let's get to a couple of these. Ronaldo says, I mean, it's going to be the actual Vader versus the actual Obi-Wan. I really don't want that to happen. He's saying, I prefer the idea of Obi-Wan fighting a vision of Vader, which would almost be, I guess, similar to when Luke did that in Empire Strikes Back, where it was really more of a vision. But I don't know. I think that if they're going to actually commit to a duel, then I would want it to be the actual people.
Yeah. No, it's actually going to be this. I mean, now I don't think it's going to be, like Ronaldo suggesting a vision. I mean, on one hand, it would kind of be cool, but on the other hand, it would kind of I feel like it cheapens the moment.
It does. I mean, because it completely does.
Because
well, first of all, it's kind of overused. I mean, even though it wasn't used too much, it is still kind of an overused thing, and it would be a way of shoehorning things. Because look, you do have the problem of episode 4 primarily because you had a couple of different things. Number one, with this whole when I left you, I was but a learner and the master, what we were talking about before. You have to remember that Vader was not written to be Anakin Skywalker at that point.
Right.
It really was the literal thing. A pupil of mine, named Darth Vader or whatever, betrayed and murdered your father. That was the way that it was. And then, of course, you had the other problem where Lucas wanted the lightsabers to be a little bit more like broadswords, like really heavy and cumbersome and all this. So when you start to factor in all these things that are more of a product of either the time or the original script, you are now faced with the problem of trying to rectify all that, which is not an easy task because of a lot of the things that we're bringing up. Now, if they just kind of left it back with episode 3 and then, you cover 4, you're okay. The minute you try to drop the Obi-Wan thing, that in this series, we're talking 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, you can do a thing to where Obi-Wan obviously knows who Vader is. They took care of that in Revenge of the Sith. They made it clear that Yoda, he even tried to sort of spin some of the dialogue that was in episode 4 where he's like, well, the person that you knew as Anakin Skywalker is dead, and now, which I thought was kind of funny, but I mean, it is a good explanation if you're gonna go that route.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that if you're gonna give us a duel, let it be the real thing.
Let it be the real thing.
This is, and like I think people really want to see this version of it because, of course, at the time, like you just mentioned, Lucas wanted the broadsword thing, but we saw like that fan film, and it just makes it look so much better.
I know. Well, the fan film spoiled us.
Yeah, and it's given. I mean, but it kind of gives you that gravitas, and it kind of makes sense once again because you get the Revenge of the Sith thing where they're just going at it, and of course they're both younger, but then like you get to A New Hope, and it's just kind of like this lurching kind of, like you said, they were kind of more like sparring really with each other. Really, it's not even really a true duel.
Yeah. Well, but Ronaldo. Here's a point, though, that I want to bring up because we need to address this. We have on previous shows whenever we've talked about this, but this is something that's going to be brought up by a lot of fans, I think. By the way, RG50 has joined us, and he's got something to say, but hang on. Okay, so Ronaldo's like, the thing for me is their conversation in episode 4 loses some impact for me. And that's a legitimate point.
Yes.
And that's something that we can deal with a little bit today in the discussion, but I think that ultimately Lucasfilm is going to have to deal with this somehow in the show. And we alluded to it, that dialogue does present a little bit of a problem. I mean, it's true that you can put a little bit of a spin on it and, you can sort of make it fit, I guess, but it is problematic. So, I mean, how would you feel they could rectify this so they could stay true with what, of course, the dialogue actually isn't for, but they can make it work for this series?
Well, let's just look at the dialogue. Okay, so I believe he's talking about the part where he said, you should not have come back.
Well, there's probably a lot of it. I mean, there's the whole "when I left you, I was but a learner" thing because we're assuming that fits very neatly within episode 3, right? He was still kind of
True. You could see it, either way, because that's what I'm saying. And that's what I made the point earlier about their earlier meeting. If Vader is still kind of like getting used to the suit, then it's still like, okay, I could see him kind of like, well, I was, because like you said, when I left you,
he wasn't in the suit though at that point. I mean, if you're talking about, the dialogue in 4 referencing the Obi-Wan battle, right? Rather than the Revenge of the Sith. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Now I understand. Now I'm good.
Yes. So, if you go from that standpoint, then it's like, okay, he's getting used to the suit. He's getting used to being on the dark side, saying like it's still kind of like a different thing for him because I think about it, like Anakin's been, on this whole Jedi path since he was like, 8 or 9 years old. That's a whole lot of program that he's had to deal with. And then all of a sudden now he's got to follow this whole Sith code and this whole Sith rules. And yeah, it's not as dogmatic as the Jedi, however, but there's still parameters in which he must operate in, I'm sure. So even with that, it's like, okay, I got to get used to the suit. All right, I got a new master now who's trying to teach me, and I'm finding out all. So he's learning how to be this Vader now. And I could see him saying like, okay, well, when I left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master, only the master of evil now. So it's just like, okay.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's kind of making it work. We'll have to see. RG50 says, I agree with Ronaldo. and that I would like to see an actual duel at the end of the show, but see visions throughout the show. That could very well happen. Ronaldo comes back and is saying, but if this really happens, I think it's going to happen. I'm going to be open-minded about it. Still don't want this to happen, but I'll wait and see. Maybe I end up loving it. Well, this actually...
if I got
Go ahead.
I was just gonna tell Ronaldo, if I have to sit through visions, you can sit through one duel.
That's very well played, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But here's the thing, though. And this brings me to... This is a really nice segue to a point I was already going to make, actually, and that is the one thing that we're missing here. It's the most important piece of the puzzle, by the way, is the context of this Obi Wan duel. And that's where I think Ronaldo's point kind of hits, too, is that, well, I might end up loving it.
The one from the series?
Yeah.
Okay.
We still don't know, right? We're basically saying, okay, there's going to be this duel of the century in the Obi Wan series, which is interesting because the way she's making it sound, and I don't think this is just general marketing. I mean, she seemed really enthusiastic when she said that. It's got to eclipse, then, the Revenge of the Sith duel. How are they going to top that? I mean, other than the fact that it's Vader in a suit and, you know, it's almost like you get prequel Obi-Wan and then Darth Vader. You know, that's kind of a cool little matchup in a way.
Well, I think you could. I mean, like I said, I think you can do that because, like I said, if a fan can come up with this whole duel thing, surely...
That's true.
You see what I'm
I
saying?
will say that little
that
episode 4 duel was pretty spectacular. So, okay, there's that.
We're throwing lightsabers and, you know, it's like, yeah.
Well, but my point, though, is that, okay, let's just say it's on that level, right? Maybe it's even better than the Revenge of the Sith duel. Because you also have to think of the emotional context of the Revenge of the Sith duel as well.
Mm-hmm.
Given that, we know the intensity of the duel. We know the fact that there's going to be a duel, but we have no idea the context around it. We don't know the story that's going to surround it. We don't know in what context it's going to be placed. More importantly, we don't know the dialogue that's going to take place during the duel. That might either shed further light on what was said in episode 4, i.e. we're going to have to retcon it, or what. And I think that it's kind of tough to be either overly excited or overly critical about the fact that the duel is there, because you also have to look at the standpoint of, since Deborah Chow is kind of the head of this, and, you know, you have Filoni and Favreau involved too, there's probably a really good story reason why this is there.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I think, well, as far as context, if the rumors are true, that is, like I said before, it's based upon this whole person being in captivity, and Obi-Wan is, you know, sent to free him, and of course, you know, that draws Vader out, you know, because, you know, he's like, okay, no one is going to be able to stop him but me. I mean, you gotta think about it, like,
well, I'm
who's
not
going to
necessarily
stop Obi-Wan except
except for Vader.
And he's already probably dispatched the Inquisitors by now, because this is probably going to be like the last. If it's going to be maybe a 2-part episode or something like that for the end, like for the finale,
season finale, you know? Hands down. Of course, this thing's not going to drop in like the 3rd episode or something, you know?
Right.
Well, how many episodes are there of this show? It wasn't that many. I thought it was like 6.
I thought it was 6 or 8, maybe.
Yeah, well, it's no more than that.
8, no more than 8, I don't believe.
So, I mean, even if, I mean, we joke about episode 3, but that could be like halfway through the series, you know, I mean, or season. So, but no, I mean, hands down, I think you're right. I think it's definitely going to be, you know, probably, I don't know if they're going to do a 2-parter season finale or not. Yeah, they might just choose to extend. So maybe the season finale is like an hour and 10 minutes or something.
Right.
But either way, though, with the context that you mentioned, that's not entirely what I mean, it's part of what I'm talking about, but not entirely, because we know some loose details, and let's just assume that the rumors that have been discussed are true. So there's somebody that, is in captivity or whatever, and Obi-Wan goes to free him. Vader's like, okay, I'm the only one that can stop him. And you assume that by now the Inquisitors have failed. So, yeah, he's the one that's like, okay, this is going to have to fall on me. Almost like at the end of episode 4 when he was kind of like, prepare my or did he say you guys come with me or something like that? Where he was just like, when he was kind of basically watching the whole battle and he just realized, you know what, I got to hop in my TIE fighter and just do this myself.
Oh, yeah. He's like, yeah. When Vader's like, we'll destroy them ship to ship, get the crews to the fighters. Yes.
Yeah. And he was just like, you know what? Because if you really stop and think about that, that was kind of a remarkable thing. We didn't think anything
Vader
of
figured
it.
out what it was. Vader knew what they were trying to do, and he figured like, okay, these guys are getting a little too close with this. Because they remember they had that whole meeting. He said that we have analyzed their target. He's like, well, is there a danger? And it was
I can't stop thinking about the Family Guy episode.
Yeah,
can't we just put a piece of plywood over it? I mean, it's because it is true. I mean, when you actually go, well, we have analyzed their thing, and there is a weakness. It's like, well, okay, are we gonna just let that go,
or right?
So you could be right, but I just mean the weirdness of Vader actually joining the battle, which really isn't. I mean, really, when you stop and think of the franchise as a whole, it's not an uncommon thing. I mean, even in Empire Strikes Back, I mean, granted, he waited a little bit, but he ended up storming the Hoth base with the stormtroopers.
Yeah, I mean, like, you got to think about, like, you got to understand, like, who Vader is. Vader's the enforcer.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like, okay.
Well, and he's not like one of those guys that shies away from a fight or anything, or like almost like a bureaucrat or figurehead.
No, he loves that, actually. I mean, that was his problem as Anakin. He was always, that's what Obi-Wan kept talking about. Like, man, he's always running in to jump in some fight, But I mean, if you think about, if you watch the Clone Wars, okay, not the Clone Wars, but Rebels, okay, yep, he came down and he got involved with the Rebels, with the when the Inquisitors failed. He also popped up in Rogue One. He didn't have to go on the thing and go get the plans, but he made it his business to get up there and get the plans. So he's always just been kind of like the guy to kind of jump into stuff if he feels like, okay, you guys just aren't doing. I'm going to take command, and that's how he kind of proved his worth is, but it was not even so much proving his worth to Palpatine, but it's more so like to everybody else, to the rest of the Empire. That's why everybody feared him. Not just because he was like this mystical guy and he's like 7 feet tall and he can choke you, but I mean, the fact that this guy is fearless, man. He'll jump in any battle. He doesn't care. He can fly. He can, pull out a lightsaber and take down a whole like hallway full of people. I mean, yeah.
The guy's powerful.
That whole, yeah.
Well, okay. So Ronaldo basically says the problem in the dialogue in episode 4, that's basically what he's saying the problem is. If Vader fights Obi-Wan before 3 and after 4, well, it would actually be... Yeah, that wouldn't really... I don't think he still considers himself the learner. It'd be like after 3. I think he just reversed it. It's after 3 and before 4. I don't think he still considers himself the learner. Which... Yeah, and that was really kind of... that was kind of a problem that I was having too. Let me just get all these chats in, and then I'll address that a little bit more directly. He's like, maybe it could be
for that too.
It's like maybe it could be a situation where Obi-Wan doesn't know he's fighting Vader and vice versa, but I mean, he knows. He knows that he's known that he's Darth Vader from Revenge of the Sith. I mean, he went around calling himself Vader, actually, and he saw the security footage. Where Palpatine is like, henceforth you shall be Darth Vader. So, I mean, it's kind of like, it's not really a mystery. And then he finishes up by saying, how would that work? I have no idea. It's the will of the Force. And basically, again, I mean, I agree. I also don't think that he considered, I mean, they'd have to really stretch it for him to be, even though, I mean, I get it, the whole suit, he's learning the dark side and all that. I don't really think that Vader at that point considers himself a learner. I still think he's referencing back to the episode 3 stuff. which he could still
Well,
be
yeah,
doing.
but see, here's the part that I think we're forgetting. So you got to understand, like, what set him off. I won't say in the beginning, but one of the major things that kind of
Oh,
tipped him
the
off.
Jedi Master thing, the Council.
Exactly.
It's like, I grant you the rank of Master, but you're not,
No,
on the
yeah,
Council.
yeah, because he was like a knight, but he was like, well, no, he granted him the rank of on a council, but he wasn't a master.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it's that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had it backwards.
because
It's kind of like, yeah,
he was
we'll
like,
give
well,
you a
how am I
seat
on
on
the
the
council,
council,
but
but yeah, we're not granting you the rank of
the
Master.
rank of master? And he was like, well, how can they do that? Keep holding me back. That's been his biggest complaint the whole time, is everybody kept almost like treating him like a kid and holding him back. So now he said, now I am the master. And he's like, but yeah, only a master of evil this time.
Yeah, but
So
here's my
once again,
point, though. I mean, I get it, but that doesn't necessarily mean. See, I don't think that people should fall into the trap of. Okay, let's just say they fight during which we know
that's
they
what
will.
Akbar said, though.
Well, I mean, the thing is, yes, I know. Well, and it is a trap, because I think that the biggest mistake that we're making here is assuming that they don't have to fix every piece of dialogue, because they don't not every piece of dialogue that was said in 4 has to reference this particular battle. You know? I mean, they could still be talking about episode 3 and the circumstances with that. I mean, because even if you think about it, when he says, I left you, I was but a learner, but now I am the master. Okay, that still could be referencing, like you said, because that's actually a very good point. He was really tweaked out about that. That was a thing for him. In fact, that was probably, along with the whole saving Padme and all that, part of what actually pushed him toward Palpatine and the dark side.
Yeah.
But that's my whole thing, though, is just, don't fall into the trap of every single piece of dialogue that has to somehow reference this battle now. It doesn't. They could just end up fighting or whatever. Because, I mean, if you really stop and analyze all the dialogue, it's, you should not have come back. Well, okay. I mean,
man, you could have stayed in hiding, basically.
Right.
That's
and
what you're
actually
saying.
And the point is, that would actually be strengthened by another duel. Because if they duel again in the Obi Wan series, and now it's kind of like in between 3 and 4, and he obviously survives it, it almost adds credence to Vader saying, dude, really? Twice? You should not have come back, So Ronaldo has a couple of additional points. He says, the way they could do it is Obi-Wan is fighting Vader. In Obi-Wan's eyes, he's fighting someone else like an ancient Sith or something. And then the same thing with Vader. But that really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, though.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's too emotional of a thing. I mean, I get it. You could say a little bit of emotional detachment, but it isn't. He already knows it's Darth Vader. He already knows Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker.
And that would completely like nullify the relationship. That's why Revenge of the Sith was really so heartbreaking at the end, is because before they even ignited sabers, he was like, you were my brother, Anakin, I loved you, and it was just like this whole, even the music you hear, he's like, well, if you're not with me, then you're against me. And it's just like, look, he's like, you were supposed to do this, you were supposed to be the chosen one, you're supposed to destroy the stuff,
bring balance to the Force,
not leave it in darkness.
There's actually a lot of really cool, funny points that he was making in that, actually, because it's like, dude, really? Come on. It is.
Yes.
It's a total rant. And the other thing, going to your point, is that Anakin tried to give Obi-Wan a chance.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, look, dude, if you're siding with me, we've got no problems.
Right.
I'm not trying to hurt you.
Even and this is not shown in the movie, but in the book, it's implied that Anakin thought that Obi-Wan was having a little side quest with Padme.
With Padme. Mm-hmm.
So that was a whole other thing too that he was kind of ticked off about, but he wasn't even so much mad about that, really. It was more so just, Obi Wan kept saying like, my allegiance is to democracy. Like, what are you doing? Like, I thought that we believed the same thing, and it's like, well, no. In my eyes, I believe the Jedi are evil. Well, then you are lost. You know what I mean? Like, you just hear all these different things. It's like, so for them to be now completely split in ideology and what they legitimately care about, that splits their bond, because that's what bonded them. And so now it's just kind of like, well, I must do what I must. It's just kind of like, well, it is what it is at this point.
Well, and here's the other thing too, that nobody's really entertained around the internet anyway, that I haven't seen this on any channel that's addressed this rumor. First of all, we're all assuming there's going to be dialogue in this fight. There may not be. Vader and Obi-Wan, I mean, I know it's a stretch, but we don't know the circumstances.
Yeah, you gotta have some type of dialogue. I mean,
I'm sure you will, but I mean, I'm just saying you don't have to.
I know.
It could be almost kind of like a Qui-Gon Maul thing. You know?
It's on site.
You're just...
Like, are you here?
You just kind of get it, or maybe... And I'm not saying necessarily like no dialogue, period, but maybe minimal. It might not necessarily have a chance to... Because we don't know the circumstances.
True. That's very true.
Ronaldo... also says, I trust in Deborah Chow's creativity. I'm positive she'll do a good work if this happens. Again, it's going to happen. Make no mistake. The Obi-Wan or the Vader Anakin, or I'm getting all mixed up. The Vader Obi-Wan duel is happening. It's a done deal. It was confirmed by and reiterated many times by Kathleen Kennedy. And
they've actually said it took 2 weeks to shoot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was actual reports on the set about the duel. The duel's a done deal. It is not a rumor. This whole leak thing, though, we just don't know yet whether it's really a trusted source or not. So basically what this whole thing has been about is this leak a legitimate set leak?
Yeah, in the sense of like, it's a story that coincides with the duel. Is that legitimate?
Right.
But the duel is happening.
Right. The duel is happening. That's kind of a done thing. That's not a rumor. That's a locked-in thing. It is interesting to me, though. I mean, this almost gets off on a little bit of a tangent, but I still wonder why it was necessary for Hayden Christensen to come back.
Because I think there's definitely going to be some flashback scenes, or there's definitely going to be
There has to be. Because otherwise, what's the point? You could put anybody in a suit. I mean, and they need to put somebody, obviously, who, pretty much fits the bill, right? They got to be really tall. Or at least with the ability of putting lifts in or something.
Or the other thing is maybe we see Vader without his helmet at some point, and it's got to look like Hayden.
I mean, I guess. I mean, I suppose that's probably the only real other reason that you could do it, is maybe there's some helmetless Vader scenes or something. I mean, we got a little bit kind of in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know what you mean. But again, to me, it has to almost be a flashback thing. And again, that's going to add a little bit more backstory and support and context to this big duel. And if we're correct, because I think both of us agree that this is going to happen in the season finale. And they didn't really say they were going to a season 2 with this thing. So I think that this thing is still considered a limited series, and it's basically a one and done. So you could actually call it the series finale, at least as far as what we know now. And I think it is safe to say that it's going to happen in that last episode. And so consequently, I think that there might be a lot of build-up to that. And there's going to be some context that's added. So when you actually do see the duel, you're kind of like, oh, okay, this makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one of the biggest concerns that people have is that this could be a fan service type of a thing, which would be kind of weird because not a whole lot of fans really want to see that. I mean, we all say it's cool. Like, oh man, that would be really cool. But then everybody's saying the same thing. Like, I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, I just think, like you say, it has to serve the story. It shouldn't just be shoehorned in. And I think that's everyone's big thing. Is just like they just don't want, oh look, you know what I mean? Like they put this in here, But if it really truly serves the story, like I said, that whole scene with Vader and Rogue One, marching down, like that served the story. It wasn't just to show Vader, but at the same time, it was to show Vader is like how vicious he was at that time.
Well, and yeah, that he's like, and again, to show his power, because up until that point, honestly, on film, we didn't really see him in his true zenith of power. I mean,
true.
I guess kind of, right?
Empire.
This is like a couple of weeks before, episode 4, so it kind of is. But I guess we just never really saw him do anything over the top like that. Yeah.
All right.
But again, that's a very good point, because if you look at what was cut from that film, he was originally going to be like storming the beach, and it was almost going to be a little bit more kind of like the Hoth battle, I think, in that sense. Although it was going to be even more so because he was going to lightsaber blazing, kind of like a D-Day kind of thing. And they ended up cutting that, and they did that, which actually I think that this is a way more effective ending that they had. And it showed the true horror of Vader and what he could do, and like you said, his power. So I'm really curious to see how they characterize him. Because again, if you're going to put the Inquisitors in this thing, they're going to be seen as pretty powerful. So now you have to show that Vader's even more scary and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a really interesting ride. Now, they still haven't really given a date. I've heard some rumors that they might be looking at May of next year.
Yeah,
there was some stuff that came out that he's going to be. It's going to coincide either with like a celebration thing, or there was some other thing going on in May, and they thought that maybe Obi-Wan would premiere that month.
Yeah, I think it's like the whole May the 4th thing. I think that's when it drops.
That could have been.
That's what I've been. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, if that's the case, it's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
It's really funny because we're in October right now. We only have about 2 months or whatever for Book of Boba Fett.
Book of Boba Fett, yep.
Now, you just sent me a thing while I was on my feverishly trying to get home to even do this show about Mandalorian halting production.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a whole nother conundrum.
Yeah, that's gonna be really crazy. Because I haven't read it yet, obviously, because I was trying to frantically get home so I could do the show, but again, it does seem like there have been some things that have come out over, I'd say, the past month that were a little strange. First, they were a little wishy-washy about when they were going to premiere the thing or even start shooting it. Then I heard they started shooting it, but Pedro Pascal wasn't there. Which, again, is not... a lot of times people were actually acting like this is like warning bells are going off or whatever. I'm like, well, that's not necessarily the case. Because you have to think about the fact that he wasn't in the suit like 90% of the time in the first season.
All right, and this is still Filoni and Favreau's baby, so...
Yeah.
Those guys, they got it.
I think so. But it's going to be really interesting. Now, of course, just so you guys have an idea of what's coming up, of course, much to Daryl's chagrin, Monday we'll be covering episode 3 of Visions. So we'll have to see, man. Maybe this is the one. I haven't watched it yet. I will, of course, watch it this week. I'll watch it before Monday. I mean, next week's actually going to be a really crazy... I mean, I'm on a production every single day that week. but it should be relatively balanced. So I think that, we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay. So you have, what have we got? I don't know. Maybe we can address the Mandalorian thing this Friday, next Friday. Yeah. And if we basically do it next Friday, then I think that we can try to cover maybe a lot of the different Mandalorian stuff and see what's going on. Maybe talk about a bunch of different stuff, including whatever this article says. Then, of course, the following Monday, I'll actually be out of town. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to do the show. I'll be in North Carolina, actually, on a shoot. Maybe I could do it from the hotel room, like I've been known to do sometimes. Ronaldo's like, oh, man, I really want to see your reaction to episode 3. Well, all right, then. But that Monday, if we can do the show, then we'll end up doing episode 4. Now, 2 weeks from tonight, it'll be October 29th. It'll be the show before Halloween. And our intent is we're going to review the whole Lego, what is Tales of Terror or something like that? Yeah. Yeah. I saw that. That was...
It's like a little TV guide, man.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I'm trying to give people like, hey, here's what's coming up, because that way. And then, of course, it also solidifies it for us, too, in case, of course, we violate it. And then people are like, well, wait, I thought they were talking about the beauty of a live show, man. Of course, this thing can go in any direction, though, right?
It definitely has.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight's show. But make sure you guys tell us in the comments section, what do you think of this whole, Obi Wan Vader duel? What do you think of the leaked information about the context that we get, the storyline, why Obi Wan is doing this? Going off planet, he's going to rescue somebody, and run into a little bit of problems with Vader because Vader figures he's the only one that can do it. I mean, let us know in the comments section. And, of course, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Help the channel out, help us to grow and talk more Star Wars with you guys. So I think that's it until Monday, until what I'm sure you're dreading, the episode 3 of Visions. We'll see you guys back for that. And so until then, I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.